Well, the DNC is in full swing and it is absolutely nuts. Confirmed, over 20 abortions for free, by the way, have already been conducted. An unknown number of free vasectomies. I haven't found that number yet. They've got inflatable IUDs, women parading around dressed as mifepristone pills, which for those of you that don't know is the abortion pill. This is a sex-rattled, sex-focused, sex-themed Democrat National Committee. It is absolutely insane. And if you're a moderate, I have to ask you, is this really what you want in your political party? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. But first, I want to talk about what is actually on the line, not just in this election, but in the next 2 to 3 elections. We are always looking the next election cycle. We have to be looking long term. How are we going to fix things in the long term? And let's look at how we've done thus far. Just look at the past 100 years. In the 1920s, the home price to income ratio was about 2 to 3 times the annual income. Today, it's 5 to 6 times the annual income. Debt to GDP was 30% in the 1920s, and that was bad enough for President Coolidge and others to make staffers use pencils until they were nubs too small to hold before you could get another one out of the storage room. Could you imagine something like that happening today? But by pinching pennies, he was able to cut the debt by 25%. He cut it from $22 billion to $16 billion. Today, we are at over 100% debt to GDP ratio. Tuition at the time in the 1920s was about 9% of the average income. Today, it's 38% of the average income. Inflation was around 0.1% in the 1920s, and they say today it's 3%, 4%, 5%. But the criteria measuring this, it's been changed constantly over time to mask the real inflation, and it's estimated by some to be over 20%. And I think anybody who's bought anything in the past week would probably agree that that is accurate. And since the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, where we got central banking and the IRS, our government has done nothing but grow, spend, print, and erode our republic. And as the government grows, it becomes more powerful and more influential. And this makes way for more lobbying and political spending. It makes way for more favoritism and preferential treatment. And all it takes is a few $100 million funneled into flashy political parties like the DNC and the RNC to get this preferential treatment. And let's use housing just as an example, because that's a massive problem right now and one that people like to talk about. So part of this is supply, part of this is inflation, part of it is wages not rising at similar rates to inflation. There's a whole host of reasons. And the problem is we know what it is, but we aren't fixing it. Why? Well, we know that the supply issues are partially due to conglomerates like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard controlling an estimated 25% of the housing market in the U.S., and they control it either directly or indirectly. The Washington Post will tell you that this is a conspiracy theory. But when a massive investment firm owns 10%, 15%, 20% of a real estate company, a construction company, or some other real estate-related company, and you are the largest investment firm in the world with access to trillions in much-needed capital, you can control it, but you can maintain plausible deniability. Well, why does it matter? Financial News London estimates that their total assets, this is BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, total assets under management now are at 38 trillion. Some people will say 20 trillion, some people say 25 trillion. But when they spend millions on lobbying at the federal level and a few more million at the state level, and I'll use Tennessee and Texas as an example because they're being sued, BlackRock is being sued by Tennessee and Texas, but those millions of dollars are a drop in the bucket. These entities are major shareholders in 80 to 95% of the S&P 500 companies. And then they turn around and use these relatively small amounts of money, that they've pulled from their fortune, which is tens of millions, by the way, to get favorable legislation from the very politicians that are going on stage and telling their voters that they are going to D.C. or that they are in D.C. to fight the big guy, to support the little guy, all while taking donations from the big guys that are keeping the little guys from being able to afford a home for their families. At the DNC, we have heard rich politicians making attempts to relate to the common people, and they're doing this from box seats in the convention center that sold for $500,000 to $2.5 million each. Michelle Obama told us that men like her grandpappy were suspicious of people who had more than they needed. This is very interesting, coming from a woman with a 7,000 square foot home in Martha's Vineyard, an 8,200 square foot 9-bedroom home in D.C., and a 6-bedroom home in Chicago. Now, I don't have a problem with people being successful, but her success came from marrying a guy who became president and miraculously took his net worth from 1.3 million to 80 million in a very short period of time. But what sticks in my craw as well is the hypocrisy. We see it on the left and on the right. But Donald Trump is many things, but a hypocrite is not one of them. He admitted to using tax loopholes. He does not filter his language. He's a billionaire and he's proud of it. He's admitted to making political donations, but now speaks openly about the toxicity of lobbyists in politics. If you remember when Donald Trump was in the presidency, he kept the lobbyists out of the White House, and this made them furious. And you might say, well, he did it, so shouldn't we? Shouldn't the Democrat Party? No, because someone doing it and stopping is not the same as people who continue to say, well, everyone else is doing it, why can't I? At some point, this has to stop, and it will take drastic changes to make this happen. Donald Trump is a drastic change. I'm Jared, and this is Continue Freedom. Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. So that intro, I'm going to explain this to you guys. I have got and go to continuefreedom.com, sign up for my mailing list. I've got a massive number of notes, I've got a lot of notes that I'm going to try to get through today. So pardon me if there's some little breaks in here because I have so much I want to cover. The thing that I want to highlight is the DNC. We're going to start off talking about that. This is kind of what's happening right now in the Democrat Party. So if you all remember back in 2000, I think it was 2011, is that right? Where the DNC or the Democrats put out it was an ad, pushing grandma off the cliff in a wheelchair. It's a very controversial ad. But that's kind of what's happened in the Democrat Party. Kamala Harris came in with absolutely no votes. No one had chosen her, and now she's being touted as this great leader, and you can see the fake grimaces on a lot of the political pundits' faces because they just don't like Kamala Harris. So what are they doing? They are just going after Donald Trump. There was a count. It was, and I should have pulled that one up because it's just now coming to my mind, but 250 some odd mentions of Donald Trump, and yet there were, it was like 50 mentions of the economy and 9 mentions of the border. This was all within the first couple days of the DNC. But here's what we can take away from their messaging. This is the political spectrum as we see it today. This is a great meme, but it is 100% right. To get done the things that they want to get done, Kamala Harris is talking about price fixing and all this sort of stuff. You have to be a far left authoritarian in order to be a good person in their mind, because this is a good versus evil. I won't deny that. It's just what's evil has become good when it comes to the left, if you want my personal opinion on it. But the further you move away from that far left authoritarianism, then you become alt-right, and then you're just a Nazi. And that's basically it. That's public discourse 101, or political discourse 101 inside of America. And they're attacking people personally and all this. But before I go on to that part of it, I want to bring up this video from Chris Cuomo, not one of my favorite people in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But he did a great video highlighting the hypocrisy at the DNC. And we're going to watch this video real quick. So y'all leave it in the comments what you all think of this.
A big theme here at the DNC is that they're going to go after corporate gouging. And they're going to go after corporations, whether it's in taxes, largesse, loopholes. The RNC, we heard the same thing. They're going after the elites, the 2 sets of rules. Let me reveal a reality to you that has to be spoken to here, okay? These are the soldiers. These are the men and the women that go back to their constituencies and their communities, and they fight. They take time from their jobs. They take time from their families. Republicans and Democrats alike, that's what they do. They need to charge these people up. They need to be able to get them on board. But there's another reality that is literally looking down on them. Greg, look at the ring of sweets, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about uniparty, we are strangled by the money reality in our politics. Those suites start at 500 grand. You think there's like a teacher group up in there? You think it's like the Cub Scouts of Columbia County, South Carolina, that's up in those boxes? Some of them are lobbies and good things. The media boxes, you
lobbies and good things, that doesn't track, but let's keep going.
Think they're free? Why do you think I'm on the floor? News Nation is not a broke company. Nexstar is a massive organization. We are corporate media. We don't have one of those boxes because that's the game. You pay to play. Those boxes are filled with the same people that they say they're going to regulate. They are literally looking down on the faithful.
And that's such a valid point. But it is, and it's in both parties. I will never sit here and say that the Republicans are some, pure political party. That's why I believe the movement that is going to repair this country is not going to be inside of the traditional uniparty, inside of the Republicans and Democrats who play nice with each other. It's going to take this massive conservative movement, which I'm a part of, and there's a lot of other commentators and people that are part of it. It's going to take a massive conservative movement to get us away from the uniparty. And, the hard part is we're going to have to sell this. We have to make our argument and make our case, not just to people on the right. We're going to have to pull some moderates and some other people over here because it's a tough sell. It's a very tough sell because it's going to be disruptive things, disruptive policies that are going to fix it. But, I kind of equated the DNC to when I just in my casual personal conversations with folks, they're highlighting things. It's a sexual committee, right? This is a sexual event. Everything is around sex. If you want to talk about LGBTQ, if you want to talk about the abortion, all this stuff, this is all focused around sex. And sex in and of itself, this is a topic I wasn't planning to get into, but I'm going to slightly highlight this, is especially sex outside of marriage, where you would want to end a pregnancy or something of that nature. This is debauchery. This is evil because the murder of infants, which is what they are promoting, it's almost as if it's child sacrifice. And I know that is going to not work well with anybody who sits down the middle of the road, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. That this is setting up, idols essentially to sexuality. Sexuality in and of itself is great inside of the covenant of marriage. But there's going to be an 18-foot tall inflatable IUD, which I just showed you at the event, and this is all for free to womb. That's the name of this. This is called free to womb, so they named their idol. And a mobile abortion clinic from Planned Parenthood will be offering free medication abortions as well as vasectomies near the DNC in Chicago next week. The Great Rivers Planned Parenthood made the announcement on its X account this past week, and they have successfully aborted multiple children. They gave them pills, it deprived them of sustenance, and they essentially starved to death in the woman's womb. I'm sorry, but, I don't take a middle-of-the-road stance on abortion at all. I think that we didn't go far enough in getting rid of it. I think that it is it's one of the most significant blots on our society, or not blots, but it's a shame on our society. Shame on our society for going this long. The tens of millions of babies that have been killed is absolutely disgusting. But to make an appointment for a free Planned Parenthood provided Google Forms to fill out, and that's as simple as it is. You can go in, you can get your abortion pills, you can go in and get a vasectomy. Is that normal to anybody else? Leave it in the comments. I mean, do you think that that is an appropriate thing to do when you're talking about politics? Do you think that is an appropriate thing to have at the Democrat National Committee? And you got to look, too, at the crowds that this is drawing. The people that are coming out here to support the DNC. It's not the peaceful, fun-loving folks that we saw at the RNC, people that love their country and American flags and Lee Greenwood and all the beautiful stuff. No, the Democrats have to use fake names to book their hotel rooms because they're worried about political violence. Now, Donald Trump has to worry about political violence, but it's from the left. It's from these very people. So as the Democrat National Convention begins Monday in Chicago, House Democrats are reportedly being told to check into hotels under assumed names to avoid being detected by up to 100,000 pro-Palestinian protesters in the city. Now, today is Thursday. I'm recording this on Thursday. A lot of folks believe that today, because this is the last day, I believe, that this is the day where it's really going to pop off. After the DNC, that there's going to be some kind of massive amounts of violence. Now, we saw earlier in the week that the barricades, far-left agitators, were breaching the DNC perimeter. So, oddly enough, and I guess the irony is lost on some of these people, We don't want a border. We don't want a border. We don't need protection. Allow in all the immigrants. But they put up a massive barricade around the DNC to protect the politicians. Odd. Irony. Irony. It is real. It is real. Ahead of the first night of programming at the Democrat National Convention, which is set to see Joe Biden speak later in the night, the agitators, with some wearing keffers, I forget how to pronounce that, and holding anti-Israel signs and flags, broke open the fencing surrounding Chicago's United Center. They moved to the interior fencing, behind which were dozens of officers. They have multiple layers of security for the DNC, but not for our own country. We have to keep the politicians safe. That's important. We got to keep the Democrats safe. But when you're talking about red states down the border, when you're talking about Texas, you're talking about all those places, that's a long way away from here. We're not really worried about that. And that's a good thing for the violent criminals to be coming across there, but we can't have them coming into the DNC. What happened to everybody is welcome? Hypocrisy. An absolute epic scale of hypocrisy. And these are, this is the type of vitriol that's being spread around here. So this is actually at the DNC. Here, let's check this out. They're very friendly and fun-loving and sweet people at the DNC. There is some language in here, so if you don't want to hear the language, you can earmuff, but
Shame on you, pig. Yo, shame on you, pig. Fuck you, pig. Fuck you, pig.
Didn't see you.
Fuck you, pig. Fuck off, pig. Oh, did you get your nose broken, pig? You lose a fight, you stupid fucking pig. Your face looks fucked up, pig. Fuck you, pig. You look fucked up, pig. I hate you. Fuck you, go home. Get a real job.
get a real job, says the barista wearing a headdress who obviously isn't working in the afternoon on a Monday. Get a real job. But this is the type of vitriol that it's just been constant throughout the week. And this is what these, when these folks get up here and start yapping about Donald Trump being evil and so on and so forth, this is what it spawns. It's absolutely what it spawns. And yet we have to keep in mind that the intelligence of that person, all they can yell is F you pig, get a real job, F you pig, this whole vitriolic stuff. They are the ones that buy off, that actually look at Michelle Obama saying things like this and say, yeah, I can get behind that. No, I still see her as one of me, even though, as I said in my intro, she and her husband own 3 homes. They're worth, I believe, hundreds of millions of dollars.
She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
Irony. It's completely lost on them. And for as much as I dislike Chris Cuomo, I thought his, fantastic response that this money, these people, they are not you. They are not of you. They are not like the normal folks. Donald Trump is the only rich guy I've ever seen that can actually relate to the common folk, right? Even though he's completely out there, but it's this strange anomaly, and his ability to do it is absolutely uncanny. But he's shown, I don't know if you all saw this or not, I didn't pull the video for it, but at one of his recent rallies, in I believe Asheville, there was a lady who passed out from the heat. What does he do? A guy that had just, an assassination attempt not too long ago, he gets down from behind the bulletproof glass, walks over to check on her. She's over there with the EMTs. He's like, oh, are you okay? He gives her a big old hug, and then he goes back to it. It's the authenticity in that he's being himself. Yeah, he's a rich guy. But you know what? You know where people like Kamala Harris lose the average person? There is nothing genuine about her. Donald Trump is a rich guy. He's a rich guy that just is who he is. Kamala Harris is who she needs to be at any given time, any particular time. And she's, obviously that, and that she's completely nonsensical. So she tells a football team that they are undefeated even if they lose. It's so ridiculous. Harris told a junior, senior high school football players in Pennsylvania, it's not easy being a role model, while speaking to the team on Sunday. Welcome to the role model club, Harris told the team. And by doing that, and all that requires, which is the hard work, the practice, working as a team, knowing that you will be undefeated even if you don't win every game. But no circumstance or event or moment will defeat your spirit and your fight and your preparedness to win and excel, that nothing will dampen your spirit of excellence. It's completely nonsensical statements, first off, but completely unrelatable. She is a political chameleon. That's why people don't like her. And that's why this is a very hard sell for her. But the easiest sell that worked for them in 2020, that they're going to try again in 2024, is the fact that she's not Donald Trump. But now if you ask, there was, I hope I didn't forget this. Elon Musk made a post. Oh, where was it? Oh, I hope I didn't forget it. Let me see. It was a very unofficial, oh gosh, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Here it was. It was an unofficial poll that Elon Musk conducted on X. And he just said, hey, who are you going to vote for? Completely unscientific. He's scientific. He said super unscientific. 73.2% Trump and 26.8% Kamala Harris. This is why I believe when we read the polls right now, when we're seeing it, they say, oh, it's neck and neck. It's 49-51. It's whatever it is, 49-51, 51-49, depending on which way it goes. They're neck and neck. They're so close. You listen to Frank Luntz and people like that say it's so close. It's so close. There's been this groundswell of support. I believe that we have been fooled up until this point. The pollsters, by and large, were trying to repair their reputation by doing legitimate polls. And those polls were relatively close during the primaries. What we have seen is that these polls are Kamala Harris's favorability. We already knew what that was. That when she came on board, they showed this spike. Oh, she's got all this support. And now she's kind of mellowed out, and they say it's back to neck and neck again. But Kamala Harris is the person who was polling at 1%, 2%, 3%. And now all of a sudden, 60% of the people are supporting Kamala Harris, or 50% rather, are supporting Kamala Harris? Really? I don't believe it. Even in places like Chicago, I do not believe it. Why? Because I have seen countless videos just like this one in places like Chicago. It's absolutely fascinating.
Tell me what's going on with the migrant crisis here in Chicago.
So I will tell you right now, I'm a person that lives on the south side of Chicago, and the migrants that have come in, at one point they were coming in and we were feeling very sorry for them because they came in at a time where the weather was cold. So we're seeing all these people in tents and all this and that. But then we find out that they're getting $15,000 in food stamps, $5,000 in cash. I work for a company, which I will not say, that they're able to come in and they're able to get internet and Wi-Fi and all of this for free because guess what? The government are paying their rent for 2 years. Why is the government paying people that came from another country rent for 2 years? Can we explain that? Because it's a housing crisis right now with multiple homeless people on the streets right now that I could follow and show you homeless people that's been living on the streets. So what makes the migrants better from coming to another country that they get all of this? Do you know why? I'm going to say why. Because we're about to have another presidential election. So if we make these migrants democratic and we give them the right to vote and we give them all of these things, they're going to vote, and then boom. I'm a Trump supporter, by the way.
I've seen countless videos. I watched Benny, what is his name? Benny Johnson, I believe. He was doing it. Don Lemon was trying to get people to say, oh yeah, I'm going to support Kamala Harris. And he couldn't find anybody. In Democrat strongholds, people are saying, no, this is enough is enough is enough. So do I believe it that it's actually as close as they say? No, I don't believe it for a second. I absolutely don't believe it for a second. Now, at the DNC as well, this is, again, more hypocrisy. I'm going to continue to highlight the hypocrisy. Does this sound, y'all tell me, what does this sound like to you?
His political opponents. He could even turn the FBI into his own personal police force. That is not how it works in America.
Really?
That's how it works in dictatorships.
I agree. Turning the FBI into your own police force? Arresting your political opposition? Does this sound familiar to anybody else? I mean, what do you guys think? Am I going nuts? Am I going nuts? We've got people dying in the streets because of what the Democrats are doing. And not figuratively, literally. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, fentanyl overdoses.
To be how much cocaine somebody would have to ingest to kill them. This is the approximate number of prescription pills one would have to ingest to kill them. This is the amount of heroin the average person would have to ingest to kill them. Fentanyl. You're gonna have to bring that camera up here real close to see it. This much fentanyl would kill you and I if we split it. They put fentanyl in cocaine. They put fentanyl in heroin. They put fentanyl, as we already know and talked about, into counterfeit pills. It's odorless, it's tasteless, you don't know it's there. And when you find out it's there, it's too late. You won't even know it. You'll be dead. 2,500 people would be killed by that amount of fentanyl. Does that sound like a drug to you? Does that sound more like a poison?
And this is what these lower income areas are seeing. This is what places like Chicago are seeing. They're seeing fentanyl overdoses. They're seeing death. And it's right in their faces every single day. And yet they're saying that they want the fake Kamala Harris to come back in and keep doing what Joe Biden has been doing? No, I think not. I think not, people. Now, I'm going to briefly change gears, and I'm going to talk about something that I think is pretty important. That how do we fix this? How is this going to get repaired? And I'm going to speak in some generalities here, but bear with me. Political change. You know, you've heard about Project 2025. You've heard about Donald Trump's, policy prescriptions, all of these things. That there's a wing of the Republican Party, it's really the conservative movement, that believes that the federal government is going to have to be rolled back. This is what's going to help us fix our inflation, our massive spending, all of this kind of stuff. That we have to rein in our federal government. But that is going to take at least a period of time where there is very little compromise, but a conservative majority, and that's very difficult for us to attain. Now, the PBD podcast. We're not going to focus on what PBD says. We're going to focus on Adam. And if you haven't seen the PBD podcast, I mean, it's great, obviously. But let's listen to this. And I want to tell you that this is where a lot of moderate folks are, and where Adam sits, which I understand. I fully understand the moderate position. However, if we are going to rein in our inflation problem, our spending problem, our crime problems, our immigration problems, if we're going to rein in all of this stuff, this is not possible anymore. It's not possible any longer to be this moderate if we want our country, our republic, to survive. So let's listen to this.
Influencers like Nick Fuentes, Laura Loomer, Candace Owens are turning against Donald Trump's campaign, accusing it of being too soft and veering away from hard-right positions that energized his base in 2016. Fuentes claimed Trump's campaign was headed for a catastrophic loss, while Loomer criticized his weak surrogates, and Owens described the situation as a MAGA civil war. These influencers who previously boosted Trump's online presence are now threatening a digital war against the campaign unless it shifts further right. Fuentes has urged his followers to adopt guerrilla tactics, including mass appearances at Trump rallies and withholding their votes to pressure the campaign into stop pandering to independents. The backlash from far-right figures who have millions of followers highlight a new vulnerability in Trump's base as his campaign struggles with slumping poll numbers. Adam, your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the problem and I've interviewed Nick Fuentes. We've obviously had Candace here. We can go down the list of people we've spoken to. And this kind of goes back to my previous point about you're never going to have an ideal candidate. You're never going to agree with somebody 100%. So we just saw the Reagan movie, right, with our friend Dennis Quaid. There was one quote that stuck out to me about the Reagan movie. And it was arguably one of Reagan's most powerful quote that people don't talk about. People talk about the quote, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall. We all know that. And then, the scariest things you could ever hear are from, I'm the government, I'm coming to help. I'm here to help. But actually the most powerful thing that Ronald Reagan has ever said, and this is something that you should think about if you're trying to win elections, and it's the following. A person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend and ally, not a 20% traitor. Think about that for a second. 80% agreeance, they're your ally, they're your friend, they're not your enemy. And what happens is, whether it's the Candaces of the world, whether it's the Nick Fuentes in the world, they think that Donald Trump or the MAGA party, the America First Party, should do everything that they say because that's how they feel, that's what's going on. It doesn't work that way. And you think that Joe Biden and AOC are 100% aligned?
Not at all.
Not at all. But they're willing to say, you know what? I don't agree with you on that. I don't agree with that. But we have a common enemy, and that's Donald Trump. Whatever it is, we're going to get together. We're going to do this thing. What happens is, when you're so tethered to your principles, and there's zero exception of what you'll make in between, there's no room for daylight. So you have Nick Fuentes, who has been one of Trump's biggest allies. Candace Owens, Trump's biggest allies. Who was the other person that you said?
Laura Loomer.
Laura Loomer, who I've met with, we spoke with. I hosted a debate with her against Dave Smith. I've never seen a more, in a positive way, delusional Donald Trump advocate. But
okay, so I'm going to explain to you why I believe, and why my threshold for compromise is very, very low. Very, very low. Because compromise is what has moved our society, has moved our government, has moved our culture to the left. And we have to, it's on us to sell it to people, because people have bought into the leftist culture. Even if you're sitting in a moderate position, you probably buy into a lot of left-leaning ideals. But those left-leaning ideals, they cost money. They sacrifice our principles as a nation, I believe. There's nothing, people might have moral intentions, but they are willing to meet those moral intentions or those moral goals through immoral means. Socialism is a prime example of that. They say, well, we just want everybody to have a house. We want everybody to have money. We want everybody to be living comfortably. And so to do that, we need to take from other people. So that's saying I'm going to have a moral end, but I'm going to use an immoral means in order to get there. This is what the compromises have gotten us. We have people like Laura Loomer, she's out there. Don't get me wrong. She is out there, zero compromise. And in a lot of ways, I'm zero compromise, but I don't quite take it to the extreme that she does. But those are the people fighting to reverse the leftist progress in our country and start pushing a conservative progress in our country. If we keep doing the same thing and we keep compromising, we say, well, that's just the way it is. You're just going to have to fix it using the broken system. No, the system needs to be fixed. It needs to be reformed. And that's what I hope that moderates will understand. This is the perspective we're coming from. We do this because we love our country and we love the people in it. And you can watch it throughout history. I just laid it out in the intro, 100 years. And our buying power, the cost of things, our ability to generate wealth, it's not improved, it's gotten worse. So how do we just keep using the same old system? No. Drastic reform. And that's why when you look at the Heritage Foundation and people that are pushing something like a Project 2025, that's a massive reformation of the government back towards the Constitution. Yeah, it looks pretty radical to a lot of people. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing to move closer to our Constitution, to rail it. Because if you ask the average American, people don't have trust and faith and confidence in the federal government. They don't have faith and confidence in Congress. They 20% have it's like these abysmal approval ratings, and yet they continue to hum along as if nothing has changed, spending and spending and spending. They don't care about the approval rating. They don't care. All they care about, they do enough to get reelected. How Lindsey Graham continues to get elected, I'll never know, but they do. Doesn't care that people hate him. He's going to make his money. He's going to get his special interest money. He's going to keep getting elected. He's going to get to fly private. This is what we're trying to fix. So if you want to understand where conservatives are coming from, that is it. Restoring some of the moral foundation of our country. When you talk about abortion, that's why we see it as it is a strictly moral issue. But let's rein in the spending. Let's rein in the government, the size of the federal government. And there's very intelligent people out there trying to make that happen. But boy, it's a hard sell to moderates. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys.